first, apologize for the delay in starting class today. I had some administrative tasks this morning, which took longer than expected. So, otherwise I would have informed you earlier. Sorry. So last session we worked on group by and having with some hands-on. So just a quick review, we use group by when you want to group the rules of data into collections based on we are not saying anything and no one is complaining. So let me see what problem. So when do we use group by? Anyone? When do you use group by in your queries? For example, if you have a table with list of employees and their salaries. If I want to find the average salary of employees, do we need to use group by? No, we don't, right? Because if we have list of staff with their salaries, what do you need to get the average of staff, average salary of the staff? Just aggregate functions average, right? You can write select average salary from the staff table, right? That's it. Now, back to that example. In that table, we also had not only the staff name, right? For example, we had a staff ID, a staff name, right? Let's say their salary, and we may have also departments, right? Which department those staff are working in. And we had several other columns, but just want to explain it. So, if we want the average salary of the staff, we can simply just select average salary from staff table, and this is our staff table, right? But because we have several staff working in each department, for example, staff 1 working in department BCS, right? And staff ID 3, 4, 5 working in another department, right? And so on. So, because we have several staff working in each department, if I want to get the average salary for each department, that's when we use group by, right? In this case, we have to group based on department ID. Now, in your example, in the slide, instead of ECS or business department, you have D10, D15, D20, etc. But it doesn't matter. So you group by here, and here, let's say you have 100K, 120K, 50, 100, 100. And so you want to like group by which column? Department, right? Department ID, and then finding the average salary for that. And then we also mentioned that, so these are the aggregate functions that you have to learn. We also had some practice with this. And just a note on aggregate functions. So aggregate functions can appear only within the select clause and or having part of the statement. This is important because you can't use, you cannot use aggregate functions, for example, in the where clause, right? That's why in the example we had, you couldn't write, when I asked you, for example, in this example, whose salary is above company's average, right? Here, can you write select staff name salary from staff where salary is greater than average salary? Instead of writing this nested query, can we write where salary just simply greater than average salary? No. The reason is because you cannot use aggregate functions anywhere, right? You can use aggregate functions either in the select part of the statement, for example, select average salary from like a table, or which in this case is still in the select part of the statement. That's why we use it in nested queries. Or if you can use it also in the having part of the statement. And most of the time you see aggregate functions with group by, but that's not always. So this is not correct, right? Instead of this, we can write a nested query. Instead of average salary, we write select average salary from staff. And this is the error you will get if you write that. Another important note was that when you're using group by, your select part of the statement is limited to only group attributes and built-in functions. What does it mean? For example, you can't write select. Okay, I give you the query, you tell me if it's correct or not. Okay. So if I group by department ID here, let's say I have select a statement here, right? From the staff table, and here we have some columns, and I'm going to ask you about from staff. And I group by department ID. Okay. Can I write select staff ID and average salary? Is this correct? No. Why? What is the problem here?
Department ID isn't in the select statement.
It doesn't matter if department ID is not in the select part, okay? There is another issue here. So you're very close. So select is limited to either the column we use in the group by, for example, here department ID, and or any other column as long as we use them with aggregate functions, okay? So what does that mean? For example, I can write select average salary from a staff group by department ID, but I cannot write select salary, right? Because it just doesn't make sense, right? Which salary? You're grouping by department, and there are several salaries for each department. So the only thing that makes sense is either you count this, or you sum this, or you take the average, minimum, maximum, or using it like in general with aggregate functions. In that case, you can use any column in the select part as long as they are coming with using with aggregate functions. So what is the problem here? Yes?
You have staff ID just listed on top.
Staff ID, right? So I ask you which column I can use in my select statement, right? In the select statement, can I use department ID? Yes, because you used it in the group by, and it doesn't have any issues. If I write staff ID, there is a problem. Similar to salary, right? There are several staff working in the same department, and now that we are grouping by department ID, which is staff ID, right? So in your result, what would be the result of such table? So let's say this is the table you have. How many rows do you expect in the result? 2, right? So this is what you would expect. So you have, let's say, staff ID here that you selected, and then average salary. So, and let's say we also have department. Now, for department, because we group by department ID, it means we only have one department BCS here and one department business here, right? So, which staff ID for this department? The staff ID 1 and 2, they both work in ECS department, right? 1 and 2. But we cannot store like multiple values in one cell, right? This is not atomic. And this is what you learned at the beginning of this course, right? So this is not allowed, and therefore we cannot have a staff ID here. Same thing goes for salary, right? We don't know which salary for each department. But we can use average salary. We can use count of a staff name, count of a star, right? Which is, in this case, number of employees. And so, these are the things that we can use and we cannot.
Question.
Yes?
In that case, can we have group by salary in that work?
Group by
salary.
salary. So why do you need to use group by with salary? For example, when we use group by with department ID, right? It's because we want to get, for example, let's say number of employees in each department or average salaries. We want to find out something per each department, right? So this is what we mean by group by. And we have several specific groups of data in that column, right? For example, in the column department ID, we have groups of department repeating. In salary, makes sense or not depend on what you want to do, right? For example, you want to like group by salaries, so in what range, right? What do you mean by group by salary? Do you know what I mean? For example, we may have 100K, we may have 105, we may have 110, and we may have 50, 70, like many different values for a salary.
Or you might want to see including how many people are on which salary, what the graph might look like.
How many people, sorry?
How many people are on certain salaries and what's the distribution of the salary, that kind of thing.
So for that,
I'm just trying to see if the selected can be kept as it is, but if we change the group by into salary, would that work?
okay, like technically if you have a salary here, then yes, you can have salary here. Whatever column you have here, you can have here, right? Because you are using in your group by. And I explained why you cannot have other columns, right? Because other columns, there is a one-to-many relationship between them, right? So for each like column, let's say you group by salary. For each salary, you may have several employees having that same salary, right? In that case, you cannot write select staff ID. So it doesn't matter. So whatever you write in your, and you don't need to memorize that. You just have to see if it makes sense, right? It doesn't make sense to write, for example, select staff ID, even if you go by the salary. And what is the problem with this one? Hello. What is the problem with this one? Wake up, class. So we first check. So all the columns that are used with aggregate functions are okay, right? So we have no problem with average salary. We have no problem with maximum salary. We have no problem with mean and count, right? So whatever used with aggregate functions is fine. Now, what else can we use? Can we use department name? Yes. Everyone together, wake up. Yes. Department name we can use because it's the column that we use in the group by. And any other column is not allowed, right? So what is that column here? Yeah.
Location.
Location, right? So location is the problem here. Because it's not contained in either aggregate function or the group by clause. And this was the explanation that I explained last session. And then we discussed having, right? We said having filtered groups formed in the group by based on provided criteria. You may also use having without group by, but in general, what is most confusing is the difference between having and where, because they both are used for filtering the results, and you just have to know that the difference is that you can use where before aggregation, whereas having is after aggregation. That is, for example, after you use group by, when you are adding extra conditions, then you can use having. For example, we want to find average salary for each department. Now, forget about with more than 2 employees, okay? This is extra condition that I talked about. So, finding out average salary for each department, everyone should be able to explain that because I repeated this example 100 times. So, what is? How can you find average salary for each department? Yes? Yes, select average salary, and then you have to group by department name or department ID, right? And now we have one more condition. So we not only want to find average salary for each department, so not only average salary for each department, but we also want to find only average salary for those departments that have more than 2 employees, right? So we have group by in our queries, and we are adding another condition, which are those departments with more than 2 employees. And this condition is after our aggregation, right? Because what is our aggregation? Grouping by department ID, finding average salary for each department, right? But after this, we say, okay, not only that, but also only those departments that have more than 2 employees. So this is an extra condition for which we can use having, right? So I'm not writing this in the SQL now because we have covered that last session. So group by department number up to that point is the same, and then having count star greater than 2. Can we write having count staff name greater than 2 or staff ID? Yes, we can. Final department with average salary higher than company's average. So do we have any volunteer for this one? Now we want to find departments that their average salary is higher than company's average salary. No one? Yes.
Select department number and average salary from staff. Group by department ID. And then it would be having average salary is greater than, in parentheses, select average salary from staff.
Are you reading from the answer?
No.
It's fine if you read. As long as you can just explain it, it's okay. So so as you mentioned, we have we can select, for example, department number because we are using it in the group by, right? Average salary is also fine because it's used with aggregate functions from staff group by department number. Up to here, you already know that, right? Now, we want to find out those departments that their average salary is higher than company's average. If you remember a similar example we had, finding staff whose salary is above company's average. So that query was similar. For that query, we used a nested query, right? Because we said we cannot directly use average salary in the where clause, for example, and we use a nested query here. So here we have a similar situation. This time, instead of finding those staff, we want to find the departments with average salary higher than this. So what is the company's average salary? This part, right? Select average salary from staff. This query gives you the average salary for the company. And because this condition comes after aggregation, that's after we use the group by, right? We're using having, so we can't use where here, right? Where is always after, before aggregation, and having is after aggregation. So this is what we practiced last session. Just some screenshots from different DBMS if you are using SSMS or Azure or VS Code. So this is the example that we discussed now, finding departments that their average salary is greater than the company's average salary. So this is company's average salary, and here we are finding those departments. Now, can we write average salary here? Yes. So in contrast to where clause, that you couldn't use aggregate function directly with where clause, with having you can. And this is one of the few places where you can find aggregate functions. So where can you find, your SQL query, with which clauses so far? With which clauses can you use aggregate functions? Can you use aggregate functions with select part of your statement? Yes, we can write select average salary from staff. Can you use average count or any other aggregate functions within the where clause? No, we cannot. We cannot write, for example, where salary is greater than average salary, or where average salary is greater than something, right? That is not correct. Can we use aggregate functions in the having clause? Yes, we can. And Yes.
I still don't understand, how do you get the company's average salary from that location?
Company's average salary.
Yeah.
With this, select average salary from staff.
How does that give you the company's average salary? How does it work?
These are the company's salaries, right? What is a company's salary? Salary of staff in that company, right? So salary of employees in that company. So we already have salary of all employees. So average of this column from this table gives you the average salary. Forget about this nested query. Don't make yourself confused. If I give you this table, right? And I ask you, find the average salary of the company, what can you do? What do you do?
Some of the salary.
So can I write select average on the salary column, right? Use this. From the table, let's say table name is the staff. Can I write this? Select average salary from staff, right? So this gives us the company's average salary. This will give us a number, for example, 100K or 70K, whatever is the average, right, of the company. So in this is exactly the same in this query, right? So this part is company's average salary, right? And you want to find those departments that the average in those departments. So for example, in ECS, what is the average in the ECS department? 110K, right? So the average of these two salaries. What is the average salary of business department? Again, something between 85 or 90, right? Now, this is the average of salaries in each department. We want to find out those departments that their average salary is greater than company's average salary. Company's average salary is all these salaries, right? From this column. And that's what I mean with before or after aggregation. So when we want to find out departments with average salary, so how do you find out the average salary for each department? Because the salary column is in this table, and this table for each department, right? Departments are repeated, so we have to use group by, right? Because for each department, for example, we have multiple employees working in that department with maybe different salaries. So we use aggregate function and use group by. And then because we had extra condition that we want to compare that average with this average, we use having. Is this clear? Yes. Have any questions? Okay. So join. Let's finish join today. Maybe next session we can have more hands-on. Just want to make sure that we finish this. So sometimes you want to get data from several tables. For example, here, whatever you need exists in the staff table, right? But sometimes you may need another information. I don't know what was the other table columns. I have to check. For example, maybe it's easier if I just write where you find that. Okay, so these are the tables that we have. So, not sure why. so I'm going to disconnect this. Okay, so this is the staff table. Sometimes this happens. If it happened to you, you can just disconnect and connect again. But even though it shows you the green sign, sometimes it's just disconnected. So if it doesn't recognize the tables you created, that's a sign. So for example, here we have division information or for example location information in the organization table, right? Whereas some other information such as salary, job, etc. are in the staff table. So for example, if I want to find employees in each department along with their division and location, right? Can I use only one table? No, obviously not, right? Some of these columns exist in the other table. So that's when you actually have to use join, right? Now there are several types of join and there are several ways you can join tables together. So for example, you can use explicitly use the word join, left, right, or you can simply list the tables, separate them with comma, which I show you today. So, back to this slide. So join just combining data from two relations based on value for a common attribute. Not only from two relations, can be even more, right? You can join out for 3 or more tables. Tables are usually, but not always, joined through the link of foreign keys. Why? Why not always? How can we join two tables not using the foreign key? Let's see this example. So how many ways we can join these two tables? So I give you a hint. We can join tables based on a common field or a common attribute or a common column, right? So one common attribute between two tables that are connected to each other is always foreign key, right? Foreign key is linking two tables, so that's always. So what is the foreign key here? Department number in the staff table, right, is your foreign key. So one way to join tables, these two tables, is through the column department number. But there is another way. You can also join these two tables using another common attribute. What is that common attribute here? Yes?
So staff ID and the manager.
Staff ID and manager ID, right? So my table is not really clear. So maybe I had to change the name of this column to manager ID to be more clear. But these are the manager IDs, right? What are manager IDs? Managers are just our employees, right? So these are the same people here, similar to staff ID. For example, we have manager ID 15, which is same as here, right? So this is for this employee. Or for example, manager ID 10, right, is standards. So if you see the job of each employee in the staff table, you see, for example, standards is manager. So the other one and the other one and two more, right? So we have several managers here, and these are their IDs. So this is another way to join these two tables. Now it depends on the query, and I show you with both ways. Now, solution one, or the first method to join tables, is using the where clause. So, for example, you want to get the course code, course name, and instructor name for each course, okay? So you select always all the column that question asks you, right? So if question asks you list course code, course name, instructor code, or name, these are the columns that you write in your select statement, right? From which table depends on which table have those information. Now back to our famous example of the student registration. Do you remember the tables? So for example, the student table had student information, and then we had instructor table with instructor information, we had enrollment table with enrollment information, and so on. Now, looking at this query, which tables do you think we need to get data from? Course code and course name, which table contains this information? Course table, right? And which table contains instructor name? Instructor table. If that's the case, then we need to get the data from two tables. So we need to join tables. How do you do that? Simple. From course, comma instructor. So this is the first and easiest way to join two tables without explicitly writing any join. Right? So you don't write any join, you just select from these two tables. But you have to add the join condition because you want to know how, especially with tables that have more than one common attribute, then the result may really be different. So we added C instructor ID called I instructor ID. Why is that? What is the instructor ID here? Instructor ID is your foreign key, right? As instructor ID in the course code was your foreign key, if you remember. I hope you remember that. And you can also sort your results, right? You must specify the join condition based on the equal value of two common attributes. That means you want to join course with the instructor table based on the common field, which is instructor ID. Same way you can join, for example, the staff table with organization using department ID or department number because that was the foreign. And we're joining three tables. Now let's say you want to get course code, course name, and the student name for each course. Is it joining three tables or can we just join two tables? So let's say my course let's say you have a table course. Just to save a space, I draw the ER model for you. I expect that you know what are the columns and so on, right? So you have course code here, course name, and you also have instructor, right? And instructor has instructor ID, instructor name, and so on. And because these two are linked together, right, it means, and what is this relationship? One to one, one to many, many to many? Let's say each instructor can teach multiple courses, but each course can only have one instructor. If that's the assumption, then it's a one-to-many relationship, right? And then where the foreign key goes? Course, right? Goes then inside. And so if you have a course table, right? If you have a course table, then you will have course code, course name, right? And some other information related to the course with instructor ID as the foreign key, right? So instructor ID with the foreign key here. Now, we want to find course code, course name, and a student name for each course. So what are the columns that I have to select? Let's see if I have these. Let's see if I have these tables in my. I don't have a student. No, unfortunately, I don't. Okay, maybe I create them later to show you next session. So back here. So what should you write in the select part? Any column that question asks you, right? Course code, course name, student name. Which tables? Course and a student for sure. But why do I write join three tables? Why do we need enrollment?
Because it's a many-to-many relationship.
Yes, because course and student have many-to-many relationship, and there wasn't any direct link between a student and course. Do you remember that? Like we had a student here. We had a student, right? This is a student. and this was course. Each student can enroll in multiple courses. Each course can have multiple students enrolled in that course. So it's a many-to-many relationship, which means there is another intermediary table, enrollment, right, between these two. So course and student are not directly linked together, but they are linked to the enrollment. So when we want to select something, let's say course code and course name that exists in this table, and then finding, for example, the student information which are in the student table, and the two tables are not linked directly, right? You have to include their intermediary table as well, which we did here. Now, what are the conditions to join? How can we join these three tables? Similar to joining two tables, right? Based on the common field. What are the common fields between student and enrollment?
Student ID.
A student ID. And so these are one-to-many, right? So one-to-many, and again one-to-many. And the foreign keys goes to the enrollment side, right? So enrollment has the student ID and course code. So this can help you to join the tables. So we use where because we didn't explicitly use the word join. We just listed the table names here, and then we add the conditions where, for example, course code from the course table is equal to course code from the enrollment table, right? Because this is the foreign key here. And the other one, what is the condition here? A student ID in the student table should be equal to student ID in the enrollment table, right? So this is your second join condition, and a student ID is equal to enrollment student ID. Now, if you want, you can give these like tables, like shorter name, for example, course as C, enrollment as E, and student as S, and instead of just writing course enrollment several times, using their aliases, right? And then at the end, you can also sort your results. Now, if the same column name is used in two tables, we should specify which table it's from. So sometimes you can skip the table, but if they have the same column name, you have to mention that. Now, joining 4 or more tables, similar, right? Now, let's say you want to find a course code, course name, a student name for each course. So far, it's the same as the previous one, but here I added taught by Mona, right? Now, why do we need 4th table here, and what is that 4th table? So far, course code, course name are in the course table. A student name is in the student table. Because they are not linked directly, we know that we have to use 3 tables, join 3 tables, right? But we also need instructor name, which is Mona, right? Where is instructor name? Another table, right? Instructor name is here. This is instructor ID, name, and so on. So we need the 4th table. Now, again, simple. Whatever the question asks you, you write in the select part. For example, course code, course name, student name. And then you have to figure out which tables contain these columns, right? From course enroll or enrollment table, a student and instructor. So these are the 4 tables that we need to join. Now we join them like 2 by 2, right? For example, course with enrollment. What else? Do I need to write and join a student and course? Yes?
Student and enrollment.
Lovely that you don't even listen to me. It's there is no direct link between a student and course, right? So you link these two, course and enrollment and a student, right? So here you are joining course with enrollment and a student with enrollment, right? And which table is connected to instructor? Course, right? And course and instructor. Course and instructor. So you have also it here, right? And you also add the condition that instructor name should be Mona. And then this order by is if in the question I ask you, you have to use, otherwise doesn't, it's not necessary. And this is what I explained to you. For example, in the case of the staff and organization, we have two common fields or two common attributes to join the tables. And so we have to be careful with that because they give you different results. So let's say these are the two tables that we were talking, right? And I want to find people with job type as manager in each department, in each division, okay? How do you do that? First, you want to start with your select part of the statement, right? What do you write in select? Whatever the question tells you, right, or ask. You want to find people or staff with job type as manager, right? So you want to select, for example, the staff name, right? Maybe also job. These are all in the staff table, right? Here, you have staff name, you have job here. But we also want them in each department, in each division. So up to department, we have them here, all in the staff table. But because we also need the division information, we need to join these two tables, right? Yes? Now, how do you do that? Just select the columns that you want from these two tables. And then you write your where clause, for example, where staff department number is equal to organization department number, right? This is how you join these two tables based on their foreign keys. And you want to also mention that because it says finding people with job type as manager, so this is your condition. Conditions come in the where clause. You already had where clause, so you just use and. Job is manager. And don't worry, we practice all this using SQL next session. Just want to do an overview today so that you learn different types of join. So now, example 1, we're just continuing on the example 1 and explaining how to join these two tables. And look here, I use the first type of join using the foreign keys, right? Because here we mentioned that we can use the foreign keys, which is department number, or we can use another common field, which is manager or staff ID, right? Now, using the first type or foreign key, so we want to find out employees with job type as manager, right? So these employees, which are in these departments, right? And because we join tables based on departments, so each of these departments, they're based on equal value in these two columns, right? So D20 here linked to D20 here. D38 here is linked to D38 here, and so on, right? So this will be how they are joined. And so this is how you, the result that you will see, for example, in SSMS, similarly in VS Code or any other DBMS that we use. So you select the column that we're asking the question, like staff name, department name, division, and department number from these two tables. And then you have your join conditions and other conditions. For join condition, we use foreign key, right? And the other condition we had is that job should be manager. And then we also sorted the results. Now, example 2. We want to find department manager name in each division. Where are this information? Where are manager names? Staff name, right? And where are the division information? Organization table. So we need to join these two tables. Now, we select the column that we want, like the division, department name, staff name, from these two tables that we want to join. How do you join these two tables? Can I write where staff department number equal to organization department number? Does it give you department manager in each division? Let's go back to here. We want to find managers in each division, right? So how do you think we have to join these two tables? Based on the department number or based on manager and the staff ID? Which two columns? So there are two ways to join these two tables. This is the first type. So if you join tables based on department number, now for this one, and we selected these, what if we join these two tables based on manager ID and the staff ID? What do you think? Anyone? We can see the difference, okay? So for example, here I use the other column because I want to find the department managers, manager names in each division. And I'm going to show you what is the difference. So the manager field or the manager column in the organization table is the same as the staff ID in the staff table. This is what I explained before. So manager name is exactly the same as the staff name, right? So this is the difference. Now, this time, instead of joining these two tables using department number, we want to join them using staff, right? Now, it means the manager ID here should be linked to manager ID here, right? The same manager ID. And next, right? And want to find the manager name or staff name, right? That's why I also see the staff name. And so on, right? So this is how we find out the staff name. Now, if you have joined by department number, what would have been the issue here? We wanted to find out the manager names, right? Or staff name. Now, if you've joined these two tables based on departments, right? This gives you different result because this will join tables based on equal values in the department tables, not equal values in the manager staff table, right? We want to find out manager name, so we join these two tables based on this color. And next session, I run both of these queries to show you the result in SQL as well. So you can just see the screenshot for now. For example, here we join the two tables based on the other column, which is not our foreign key, right? This is another common attribute. And this is the result that you'll get. Now you'll see that we have, for example, staff name, which is equal to manager name, right? For each division. And the other type of join, which is very similar, is explicitly using join. So the logic is the same, just the syntax is different. For example, if you want to find manager's name for each division and each department, right? You write select division, department, and staff name. Now, when you want to select these two, you want to select from these two tables. So one way was just to write two tables. For example, select something from table 1, table 2. And then you had to write there, table 1, right? Some column, let's say foreign key, is equal to table 2 primary. Or column 1 equal to column 1 here, right? The common column they have. So this is one. Another way to join two tables is explicitly mention join. So, and when you explicitly mention join, it means inner join. And I'm going to explain different types of join next session. But just for now, these two are the same. From T1, instead of comma, I write join. T1 join T2. Instead of where, I write on. Because I want to join T1 with T2 on which column, right? And then you mention, for example, on T1, for example, column 1, on T1, column 1 equal to T2, column. So this is the same column here. So you can see the syntax here. So this is, these two are the same. We'll give you the same results. And this is enough for now, and I covered types of join and like more hands-on next session. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Is there any reason to do like one way to join over the other?
No, you can.
It's just doesn't matter.
But later, if we have like, for example, left join, right join, then you have to explain combination.